Oh, hey, Courtney. How are you today?
I am doing fantastic, Charlie. I am so thrilled to be here with you. It's truly an honor.
Oh, it's absolute pleasure. We got connected through a mutual connection, and I'm, I'm just going to say from my side, I feel like we've just hit it off straight from the bat, and so I'm super excited about today's podcast.
I am thrilled, Charlie. I mean, just even speaking before the podcast, we could go on for hours. So I was like, let's just start this. So I completely agree with you, Charlie.
So everybody who's listening today, I hope you guys have as much fun as we have, just like literally just talking about anything and everything. But today we're going to be a little bit more focused on what we're going to talk about, and hopefully we stay on track. No promises. So the question that I ask all of my guests is, how do you like your coffee in the morning?
So that's a good question. I definitely drink coffee every morning, and it is regular coffee with regular cream. So no type of flavor creamed, just the regular type of cream in it.
Do you go to, so this is one of my questions I've loved asking everybody to see what the commonalities are. And I say there's definitely been two emerging patterns, and it's the hardcore black, nothing crazy, nothing, no frills, nothing like that. And then it's the lattes, the sort of the milky, the creamy camps.
So to your very point, I never really get the specialty coffee per se. I have the Keurig machine, so I use Dunkin' in particular, and it's not like a bold blend, but more so of just a medium, I guess you could say. So I don't like it too strong, but I do need it to start my morning off.
So I totally agree. So the next question is, and to start our podcast, is what it is that you do and why do you do it?
So that is an excellent question, Charlie. I am an adjunct professor at Florida State University, and I am a founder of Plenty of Positivity. So Plenty of Positivity came about once I finished my PhD program back in December of 2023. And I had this idea of, I love to talk about life lessons, career experiences, and sport experiences. And I feel like we could learn so much from other people. And so why I did this was I was trying to build, that's literally what my mission is. Plenty of Positivity is dedicated to building a positive community for a better tomorrow. And even in life, as I was going through sport, going through some of those difficult, challenging academic programs, being positive is so incredibly important, because if you just take the time, if it was being negative, you kind of you have the possibility to ruin a whole day, when in fact, it's a beautiful gift that we're given every single day. Mm-hmm. And so I learned throughout the years, even if I started off on a bad note, but to change the tune right away. So Plenty of Positivity really is about community building, an emphasis on sport, education, and ultimately just continued learning. I really wanted to pull people together. So that's kind of my why, but then also addressing social isolation, loneliness, mental health issues. And I feel like when we get back to community, that really could be at least a factor of pulling people together and just allowing people to feel better about themselves and have that sense of belonging.
And that was one of the reasons why I was so excited about today's podcast, because when in our daily lives, whether we work for somebody else or we run our own business, it's so easy just to get stuck into the treadmill and just get a little bit nihilistic, get a little bit down, just a little bit fed up of things. Especially, we're recording this in February, so it's snowing all the time, it's darker, it's wet, it's grey, all of these different variables can compound together, and we get into that negative mindset. And then as soon as that happens, that then starts to inform how our little daily habits and our daily decisions. And before you know it, you're further away from your goals than you wanted to, and you don't even know how you got there.
That's so true. And one thing, as you were speaking, I am definitely a people person. As you can see, like just like we were talking about, we could talk for hours, Charlie. I love to be around people and I love to learn from people. So you're definitely right. I live in Florida, but I must say, Charlie, we literally had a snow week quite recently. So I can relate to what you're saying.
I know, that was crazy. Like, was it 3 weeks ago? I was like, what is happening?
Charlie, I mean, literally, you could have never thought, of course, in Florida, out of all places, our dogs didn't even want to go to the restroom outside because they didn't know what snow was. They were sinking and they got so nervous. Yes, it happened. It really did. So I can relate to what you're saying.
That's so adorable. And what I love is like just the origin story of how you started Plenty of Positivity. Do you want to just tell us a little bit more about that catalyst?
Absolutely. So I always like to look at different areas of study. So for example, I started reading about how the U.S. Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, Dr. Vivek Murthy, at the time had declared an epidemic on isolation and loneliness in our country. And so that was kind of one factor. I started just marinating on that thought. I also, as we all know, mental health in general has been a large topic of discussion. Mm-hmm. And in addition, quite recently, back in 2024, Jonathan Haidt, with The Anxious Generation, he comes out with that book, which was absolutely phenomenal with the amount of research behind social media effects, particularly on adolescents. And I'm just kind of meshing everything together in my mind. And as I said, the positivity part, I kind of already spoke about that, but I think it's really important to always focus on the positive. And I come from a sport background. So having said that, my academic career, at least the last degree that I got, was a PhD in sport management. I now teach in the Department of Sport Management. And so I wanted to make this a unique blend of everything. I love communication. So I do have a master's in communication, but I love to be, as much as I can, if I have the opportunity, Charlie, to speak like in person or at least see you like we're doing now, I am all about it. I think the social cues, the body language really speaks volumes, of course, alongside the actual voice of the person itself. So I was starting to blend everything together, and lo and behold, I thought, literally, how do you solve this? And one, I want to be at least a fraction. I'm not saying a complete solution to all of this, but to focus on community. Because if we're talking about social isolation, loneliness, mental health challenges and issues as well, how do we kind of fix this? And I love to, at least when I ask myself, okay, Courtney, what are you doing about it? That's my thing. I read all these statistics, but what action are you doing, Courtney, is what I would always ask myself. So that's really how it started, was kind of a blend of my interest, a blend of just my own research in various areas of study.
I just love it. Like, not only you've gone and read more about some of the issues that a lot of people are experiencing, but then you've gone and done something about it. And I love that attitude. So say if somebody is listening to the podcast today, they're just really not motivated at the moment, or they're just really, everything just seems to be a bit of a struggle and they're in that negative mindset. What are some of the things that they could implement tomorrow to just kickstart a more positive direction?
That is a fantastic question, Charlie. And I do have to follow it up with finding your niche group. So for example, I really think LinkedIn is a powerful platform You could find a lot of like-minded people within the area that you may be in within entrepreneurship in general. And so it really is about building your own community, because there can be a lot of support, inspiration from those people as you start really growing that network. And ultimately, when you do feel down or you do feel maybe not as motivated, those people will, either hold you accountable, or they'll just inspire you, like I said, to continue on your path and truly believe in you. Because I think that's important, as we all know, if you are in entrepreneurship, to find that strong support system, because there are always going to be naysayers. There's going to be people that question what you're doing. But at the same time, I feel like if you feel like you have been compelled to go in a certain direction, to always find those supportive people. And it may only be like 2 people, but that's really sometimes all it takes to keep you moving forward.
If you find 2 cheerleaders that just absolutely champion you, you don't need more than 2 people. Like, that just, there's them feeding into your ear that you can do it. You're just like, okay, I can do this.
It's so true. And I agree with you, Charlie, because it's almost like friendships too. It's about the quality of friendships, not necessarily the quantity of how many friends do you have. But in those situations, when you really, really need to speak to somebody and maybe you're kind of on the down and out, those are your true friends, of course, as we know, through the good times, okay, because that's always easy, but then also through those difficult times too as well. So absolutely.
And I love that you mentioned, like your network of people and the namesayers, who people just really want to put you down. And I would even add just like the person myself, the self-agent, as probably the biggest person to put ourselves down, as well. And if you've just got this mentality of I'll always rely on myself to keep picking myself up, then you're almost onto like a losing battle, because we're going to be the biggest critics.
It is so true. And you just kind of reminded me of a topic of discussion, just that idea of perfectionism and trying to move forward when in fact you want to do something at the very beginning, literally perfect. I can at least speak from experience, Charlie.
I'm feeling this.
I'm not kidding you. I mean, I remember when I first started with podcasting, when I took the dive to, okay, how do I piece this together? I want to speak about life, sport, and career. How do I do it? Oh, wait, podcast. Well, after the first couple, the guests have been fantastic. Okay, I want to make that extremely clear. But then I was such a critic of myself, how I sounded, what I was speaking about. Was I really nervous? Was I tense? Could I just be more relaxed? And so as you do go on, I think that's like a good message, is you have to start somewhere. You are not going to be, 100% great at it at first, but I give that example just within podcasting, because I could be probably the worst critic of myself. And I feel like it's that understanding that at least that there's always room for improvement to continue forward. But then at the same time, not being so hard on yourself. We're only human, so you're going to make mistakes.
I've never heard something so relatable. And not gonna lie, I have 100 bullet points on my like one pager of all the things that I want to improve. And that's across podcasts, that's across my business, it's across my life, and all I'm doing is I'm just slowly chipping away. And I've just come to that realization, as long as I write it down and I just slowly start chipping away at each of the different points and put it into some hierarchy of importance, I've over time become and felt more comfortable with that now, rather than like always desperate to be perfect at everything.
Well, and I think to your point, I have let that go a little bit, I will say, as far as like the perfectionism part of it. But also at the same time, when you mention writing things down, writing goals, short-term goals, long-term goals, I can speak from experience, Charlie. I mean, I'm sure you can too, but when you look at, say, even over the past year of what you've been able to accomplish, you don't realize it. And I think we're always so ready to get to the next thing,
Yeah.
but we never stop and realize, let's just take time to see how far we come. Of course, we have our long-term goals and we're still set towards those. But that's the time when it's a great time to enjoy it, to celebrate it. And that's what I find to be inspiring to get me moving forward again. So it's the progression.
Let's sit on that, because typically if we ever look at like the psychological profiles of entrepreneurs or even just high level directors, they have that brain of just being switched on all the time and being go, like how are we moving forward, how are we always progressing? And it's really not inbuilt into their brains to be like, hey, maybe we should do this little thing called reflection, just not even like you said, even let's do like 1 month, or let's do 2 years, or let's even do 10 years. Sometimes if you give yourself 10-15 years of progression, you go, wow, actually that's kind of a lot.
It's so true. And I think that's so important, just as part of any process, if you will, even in entrepreneurship. I would almost say, especially in entrepreneurship, is that you do celebrate the small wins, because over time, at least for me, when I look at even the small things that have happened throughout the business, when I started it, I pretty much launched it in June. So Plenty of Positivity was launched in June. But when you celebrate the small wins, it gives you and provides you that sense of inspiration to get that much closer. But then also, it's not like you're continuing on that, what do I want to say? Kind of that spectrum of like, okay, what's next? And then that, of course, leads to burnout. And you don't want that, of course, as we all know. We're trying to always avoid that. So I really do. I think it's cutting back on certain things that you do too, but doing them extremely well. Mm-hmm. And over time, I do think that would build up to a greater sense of satisfaction with what you're pursuing.
And I love that right now it feels like we're building a little bit of a toolbox on how do we create this positive mindset. And I do want to just slightly caveat, like, we're not talking about toxic positivity. We're not saying when you are feeling down to not just sit there and feel those feelings, and actually being just realistic around when some things have gone bad and facing them. It's just more we want to do things, we want to create things in life, we want to connect with other people, and just be sitting in that more positive world. Really, I just want to make sure that we get that definition in there.
That's so true. And especially with when I'm doing that topic, if you will, of toxic positivity surely comes up. And I always like to spend some time on it and be completely transparent, even like with myself, with everybody, the whole audience itself, and of course, community. But I learned about really the power of positivity much earlier on, when I was in my childhood and I was in sport. As we know, Charlie, you could certainly attest to it, but sport teaches you so many incredible lessons. And that was when, of course, you're in the gym, like as far as my situation, I was a gymnast. So making it to the elite level, you're literally grinding 5-6 hours a day, 5 days a week. And throughout that time, of course, a bad day or two is going to creep up along the way. And it was a good reflection on how I would change my mindset more so of, if in fact I started the workout off not really on a great note, well, guess what? I have about 5 or at least 4 more hours of this practice. I could just waste it away with negativity. Yeah. Or I could switch the, knob, if you will, in my head and turn on that positivity. And it makes such a large difference, that mindset. Tell me about what your thoughts are on positivity, especially with sport, Charlie.
Well, I really want to, just tell this anecdote. And that it was really recent in that I got really into watching the Tour de France documentary on Netflix. Now, I've always liked to do road cycling, but I am an amateur at it. I've got a lot of muscles, so I tend to be quite heavier. And yes, I am using that as an excuse, but I do love to get out onto the road, into the countryside. And really, it's just like exercise with fresh air. And I'm going the long way around to say this one tiny clip in the documentary, and it's one of the coaches of one of the teams, and their lead rider has just completely spiraled into this negative mindset, and they're talking about it, and I'm going to really butcher the phrasing of it, but the way that they talked about it was, okay, they had one setback, they had a negative response, then he had one setback, and then a negative response. And he really did talk about this like negative spiraling down. And he knew as a coach that he had to get his athlete into a more positive mindset and spiral up, even that if it's just a problem-solving mindset, okay, of like, right, bike's broken, chain's broken, what we're going to do to fix this, how am I going to get back on the road? It's a very different mindset to, oh no, my chain's broken, my bike's broken, I'm just going to give up.
That's so true. And as you would adapt these lessons from understanding positivity in sport itself to translating into any business, like I said, it does not even have to be entrepreneurship, but I always think about that. If you are working with a team, especially on a project, it only takes one person to have that negative attitude and just the energy. Charlie, I am all about energy. I am telling you what, when I went through this, I don't even know what it was. It was a transformation when I finished my PhD program, and I would go out on these long walks, no headphones. I wrote about this. I would get these ideas, but I literally feel like I transformed my mindset and realized, I mean, small things. There was a variety of topics that were like going 100 miles per hour in my mind, but one of them truly was positivity. And it's that idea of when we do talk about like that toxic positivity, I am totally going to admit to you, I have bad days. Okay. Sometimes I'm not always on my A game.
Let's just like sit on that. Because we're all human, you know. Like,
so true,
right? Like we have all of these spectrum of emotions, and also we're increasing so much the variables of stimulation that is happening in us on a daily basis, and all emotions, all they are is just our body translating all of that stimulation. That's all it is, yeah. And it's going to have an effect somewhere, right?
100%, Charlie. And I do agree with you, especially when you add kind of that layer of social media on top of it, because I've looked at how at least Plenty of Positivity as the business itself could be more of that positive catalyst for using social media. So we hear, of course, there's pros and cons in everything, as we know, but a lot of the times social media, we think of the negativity or the anger that stems from maybe controversial topics, and engagement just goes crazy, right? But on the flip side, that's what I'm trying to propel into this world, if you will, is that sense of positivity. Even when we release podcasts, for example, to see people's friends, family write in very positive comments about the podcast, their story, as far as the guest story. I think that just think about even when somebody gives you a compliment on a daily basis, at least for me, it'll stay in my mind, and it could be the smallest thing. Yeah. And so that's what I'm trying to pull with the positivity part, is that we could create these platforms to be really a catalyst for something positive too as well. So
yeah, absolutely, because the algorithms are all set up, and they've come out, admitted this, that they all the big X, Twitter, Facebook, Meta, all of that, they've come out and they worked out that they get higher engagement, they get more shares if it is controversial and it's negative. So they weighted it all so that it was more dramatized, like we've seen for years and years and years in traditional media. And you just think of, like, if we think of our individual selves, we do live in a spotlight syndrome. We do live, no matter what anybody says, everybody is their own person, and everything does revolve around them. And that is not a bad, and I don't mean a completely bad thing. I just mean that from a very evolutionary standpoint. We need to look after ourselves to survive. But then if our whole peripheral of things is just like negative media, negative things like the economy is going down, or we've got like a civil war or a cold war approaching us, and you know, and you're just constantly bombarded, you are going to just feel crap, basically.
Absolutely. I mean, to your very point, that was another factor, was constantly getting whatever you want to say online or on the internet, and there was always negative stories. And so I'm not naive, of course, just like you were saying about algorithms and how everything works. But on the flip side, once again, I always try to ask myself, what are you doing about it, Courtney Beck? So, you know, and I think a lot of it is understanding sometimes like what you're up against, but on the flip side, looking at the long-term impact, especially for those younger generations coming up. I always ask myself that, well, Courtney, if you could do something about it, what type of world are you going to leave behind? Like, what could you do to make this world a better place? And I want to take that initiative by myself. Like I said, Charlie, at the end of the day, plenty of positivity could be even just a fraction. Okay. And I'll be super excited. But, you know, it's just trying to do something positive in the world ultimately.
Well, let's like pivot back to the community. Like you said, you might be a fraction, but then if you've then passed it forward to the community, they've passed it forward again and again and again. At some point, that fraction becomes the majority with, you know, passing that narrative forward. And so I wanted to swing back again to the individual listening and hearing about LinkedIn being a great place for community. We've not really mentioned it, but I'd like to put it in. Sporting communities as well. And if the person's thinking like, I just don't have time for all of this community engagement and almost time management, they're lacking in that time management, what are some of the things that they could do to change that? Because I don't believe that they don't have time. That's what I believe. I don't believe they don't have time. But I can understand that there's a lot of different pressures in a person's life. So how do we flip that around to just give them maybe a better system?
Absolutely. That's a really good question, Charlie. And I think at least what I try to do is I set up a schedule. I write in my journal short-term goals, long-term goals. And I really do feel when you set yourself up for success when you're able to see what the big picture is, like what is your long-term goals that you would ultimately like to achieve? And that could be even years down the road. Mm-hmm. Everybody today, at least speaking for myself, I'll speak for myself only right now, I guess, but it's instant gratification. I want success tomorrow. And the truth of the matter is, of course, there is no such thing as overnight success. So I like to split things up and like little baby steps. Of course, you know, as a child, you crawl and then you stand up, you may fall back down, but then you keep continually to move forward with whatever you're accomplishing. If it's walking, of course, as a baby, but even into business, we could use that same analogy, is focusing on the small steps that lead to that larger vision and accomplishing that larger vision. But to answer your question, setting up a schedule, blocking off time that is going to allow you, okay, maybe it's only 15 minutes on a social media platform, and that may only fit into your schedule. I am a morning person, Charlie. I love early mornings. So I always try to do all of that within that early morning time. So it could be between like 5 and 6 a.m., then allows me to go do my workout, to come back, and I also teach. So I focus on that too as well, and all the work that needs to get done there. But ultimately, I would say blocking off your time so you don't catch yourself on social media for 2 or 3 hours, which of course, as we know, is not hard to do.
It's so easy. Like, let's use that as an example. That system is there to gamify it, to hook you in, to hook your attention, to stick you in that world. And that's why I really wanted to bring like this part of the conversation together, because I truly believe let's flip it. Your calendar management is probably one of the biggest determining factors to whether you're going to achieve your vision and goal or not. You know, like you said, you're like time blocking your schedule out. You've even thought about your life design, you're a morning person. Like I'm a middle of the day person. Like I'm on that 10 till 3. I'm in my prime, but the mornings and evenings aren't that great. you know? So it's working out, where do your brain sit? How do you like to like fit in? And then also, let's talk a little bit about like the discipline, and I'm gonna rephrase it. I'm gonna call it non-negotiables. I've come away from the word discipline because it brings out this like over perfectionism and almost strictness to certain things, when actually I just mean non-negotiables. Like you said, you've got teaching in the afternoon. That is just a non-negotiable. But for you to exercise during the day, again, it's a non-negotiable. So you've blocked and timed that out. Other people might have family and kids. You have to pick those kids up at a certain time, otherwise you're going to get fined from the school. That's a pretty good non-negotiable, if you ask me.
So true. And when you speak about that, I think of the word too, prioritizing.
Yeah.
So we all could say, especially today, just like you said, you add social media on top of things, replying back to people, emails. Everybody is very, very busy today. There is no doubt about it. But when you prioritize certain things, and that kind of comes into that time management too, as well. And
Yeah.
I really do have to pay tribute to sport
Yeah.
with gymnastics. And I always like to think about that when I talk about trying to achieve overnight success that you just want. But the reality, of course, like we said, it does not happen. When I started, I had a big dream. I wanted to become an Olympian.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that didn't happen within 2 years. And I always try to go back to that mindset. You were enjoying the process, Courtney. You were 8 or 9 years old. You would go to these collegiate meets with your coach and all your teammates, and you lived in the moment. And so, anytime, even translating it to now, especially with this desire, like I said, just that instant gratification that you either need an award to show your progress or you need outside external validation, is that you are able to stay on that track, but to really enjoy the journey along the way, and ultimately circling it back around to prioritizing things,
Mm-hmm.
being able to stay focused, just like you were saying. I mean, you have your own prime time where it's like, kind of, don't bother me. I'm going to finish this. And that is what's going to lead to success later on, because those two words, Charlie, I've really been thinking about this for this year. I was thinking about, if I could choose two words for 2025, what would they be? Focus and resilience. Because today, more so than ever, there's so much noise. There's so many distractions. We have notifications going on 24/7, right? But if you are able to get in that mindset, just like you were saying, that those long-term goals actually become a true reality, and they become within reach because you are focused every single day. You set your calendar, and ultimately that resilience to push through even those difficult times will lead you to success.
And this is one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we really talked about the parallels between having that sports mentality and then having that business mentality, and actually why they are the same. And like this is my analogy of it all, is like, you started doing gymnastics when you were under 10. I started swimming when I was under 10, so I was in the pool by 3 years old, and I already knew by 5 like I wanted to go to the Olympics. They only start really doing the selection process for the Olympics around 16, 17, 18, around that era. Like, it's just, that's really when they start like picking people when you're that age. So what's that? That's that's 10, 12, 13 years away. And to a kid, that's not a crazy idea. But if you say that to an adult, they go, "That's crazy. Why would you think 10 years from now?" But no, kids like, "No, I want to be this. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a police person." Like, we both, like, we wanted to be an Olympian athletes. And then what cascades from that, when that passion and that vision is so crystal clear, it's like, okay, what's training schedule? I know I've got, this is particularly swimming. I had 2 hours in the morning, we had 2 hours in the evening, we had 1 hour of land training. That's 5 hours, 5 hours a day. You're doing that for 6 days a week. And because then that sport is your whole world, like other things will start taking the back seat. So, when you get to a certain age, people will like go, "Hey, do you want to go to this party?" Or for me, I remember there was lots of sleepovers that I was able to go for a little time because I knew I had swim training the next day. And sometimes as a kid that was hard, but actually now it's kind of you learn those disciplined to be like, no, 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 I said I wanted to do this goal, and these are the things that it takes because uh like that swim training is only at like non-negotiable times of the week, and if we've got to hit all the training times. And I will admit, I was terrible for putting homework in this back seat because I was like, I didn't like it, so I'm gonna copy other people. I came out of school with very good grades, so that's all that matters. But that's a really good example of swimming was my life. It was the focus, and I saw homework as a distraction because it was stopping me from eating and sleeping, which were I prioritized more.
Well, there are so many things I really want to like pick apart with that, what you were saying. So I want to give you 110% credit for being a swimmer, because I could tell you from college when I was competing at the University of Florida, swimmers, in my opinion, are arguably one of the hardest working athletes out there. I mean, they are running in the morning, they
Yeah,
go into the pool, then
yeah.
they go to class, then they come back around to swim more. And I'm like, how do you do this? Like, this is incredible. Like, you are an ultra athlete. Like, it's incredible. So props to you on that. I do have to like throw that out there.
Thank you. It's a little bit of PTSD, but we're still alive.
We made it through, right? We survived it. It's so true. And I think to your very point though, I'm grateful for what sport did teach me at any level, whether it was club level, trying to reach the ranks. And full disclosure, I never made the Olympics. It was a goal, but yeah, I didn't quite make it. You kind of realize, just like what you were saying, once you hit that top, you then start seeing what that really small 1% of that group is. And it becomes a reality. Okay, maybe I have to shift my goals to more collegiate, maybe. But it's that reality. But then also too, what you were saying, I mean, even about sport and homework, that's where that time management came in. It was having a sense of, when we talk about like prioritizing, I remember distinctively, it was school and gym. That was my life growing up. I was extremely sheltered, and the homework was really done on weekends. And the focus in my mind, I never saw myself as an academic per se. I saw myself as a gymnast. And what was actually funny, the reason I say that, at school, we would have to get out early to go to gym practice. And people would only know me, Courtney, as the gymnast. I didn't even have a name. It was literally the gymnast. It goes to show you that's where my almost like my identity, like my it was a solid identity that was formed at such a young age. And I really didn't give myself the opportunity to say, wow, if I had focused so hard on school, where could I have got at that point? But at the end of the day, being realistic, there's only so many hours in a day, and we're going 5 to 6 hours a day, just like you were saying in practice. So
Like I'm desperately trying to keep us on track here because there's so many different ways we could go down this, and I'm kind of, I know we didn't even think about the identity piece because that is a huge part of it. And you know I want to just dig into that mentality of when a person, in business, and they even might just have a personal goal. They just go, they might say the phrase, "Oh, but I'm not really like that millionaire kind of mentality. Like, I don't think it's possible for me to be a millionaire." And I do think it's just because it's not part of that identity yet, that is built up with habits, and it's built up through external sources, like people calling you the gymnast. I was always this. I had the same. I was the swimmer. I was the sports person. And it really does get ingrained who you are and what you think, and that it does become your whole world. But what is I just want to just get into the steps of, okay, I'm a business person and I want to be a millionaire. Like, I'm trying to think could be a really good visionary goal for somebody who may be just starting out. And what are those steps then to actually believing in yourself that actually, no, I am worthy. I am a millionaire. I am all of these things that are part of my identity. And we could even break this down to, I am hardworking. I am resilient. I am disciplined. I am, and you can see what I'm doing here. It's like, I am.
Harley, I am a big person on visualization, I had mentioned it before, but writing in my journal. There is something powerful about writing things down. And I could look back and some of the biggest goals that I had set out for myself, they do seem outlandish at first. There's no doubt. I mean, those are the types of goals that I kind of keep to myself, if you will. But, the point of it being is you have to believe in yourself before other people will believe in you.
Yeah.
And having not only like when we speak about the prioritizing to get to that large goal that may seem completely out of reality from another point of view, but if you believe in it, setting short-term goals, long-term goals. And I mentioned it before, but I really do think that there's so much value in celebrating those small wins because that gives you that encouragement to continue on. Building a strong support system. This could be anything. Like I said, you could find it virtually on LinkedIn, like per your professional network. It could be your family, your significant other. But to be able to have those people to fall back on, that if that self-doubt creeps in, because it certainly creeps into me sometimes.
You'll do it.
But when it does, you have those people to kind of reposition your vision again, your perspective on life. Well, Courtney, look what you've done within this amount of time. You have to keep going. So when that self-doubt kicks in and I'm thinking like kind of like we were speaking about, like that negativity, that's when you flip the switch. It only takes one person to really believe in you and what you're doing to keep you on that path. So,
And I love that you just said the word like an obscene goal, like an obscene vision. Because what you know what's really always funny, and this is something I've learned, is that vision is only is only obscene to like ourselves. But suddenly, if you ever meet somebody who's done that goal, and you have just even a 15-minute conversation with them, it's incredible how quickly they make it realistic. Because if you read that right person, you just say, hey, look, I want to do 10 million and I want to do it in 5 years. And then you go, here's my idea. I bet you a really good person who's done that goal, give you an hour and they will tell you how to do it. And then suddenly that goal isn't obscene anymore. And actually, the only thing that was probably obscene was the ceiling that we gave ourselves of what is and what isn't possible, you know?
so true. And I think about the word impossible. What is that word within impossible? Possible. And so I think the biggest thing with that though is not only believing in yourself, but like I said, allowing yourself to develop through the journey, that personal growth, learning, enjoying the journey, whatever it is. And I always like to say, Charlie, I'm not a big person on the quote, like word failure. I don't really believe in failure, but I think of, if we want to say the word failure, as a way to redirect. Okay. So, like, you make a mistake, you went left and you were supposed to take a right. You learned that lesson that you were supposed to, whatever it is, to learn, but then you redirect. And so, tying it all back, I really do. I think if you believe in yourself, anything is possible.
I love that you brought this up because talking about mental health, talking about positive mindset, and I've only really started doing this consciously in the last 3 years. And that when something, I don't want to say bad's happened, when something hasn't gone the way that I expected, or a fire has happened in the business, as everything does these days, I now stop and ask myself the question, hey, what am I learning from this? Like, what am I learning from why this has happened? And I can't always ask myself that question as the fire is happening. You just got to just deal with it. But as soon as you do just get that 2 minutes or 5 minutes just to think about that question, whether you're in a shower or you did, no headphones, go for a walk. Personally, I'm a big fan of a 10K run. That's where I do a lot of these thinkings. That works for me. It's an hour of just chipping. And
Mhm.
by rephrasing that question after something terrible has happened, it's like, hey, what am I learning from this? It's given me ideas on how to make things better for the future and put things into the processes and systems as like a fail safe almost. And every time I've done that and gone through that cycle, my fail safe has got higher and higher. So when I'm quote unquote failing, I'm feeling so high that it's still a win to the majority, you know?
100%. It takes being honest with yourself for sure, Charlie. There's been times when you're right. For me, it's the early morning when it is, I mean, you could hear like a cricket outside the door and the window's still closed type thing. But in those quiet moments, I reflect on personal growth. If I did in fact make a mistake, what was I supposed to learn from that particular situation?
Mhm.
And I think it is when we are truly honest with ourselves that you are able to move forward that much quicker when
Yeah.
you take time to reflect. Because sprinting to the finish line, as we know, it may not always provide that sense of excellence along the way. Like, did you actually achieve and learn along the way, or did you just sprint there just to have that end result? And I think that is something I've been trying to like tell myself is enjoy this journey, Courtney. Enjoy the mistakes, enjoy everything because you're learning from those mistakes. You're learning from the successes. And that's what makes, I really do. I feel like the journey even that much more valuable. And ultimately, you achieve more satisfaction at that finish line, if you will.
And, oh, you just sparked a memory in my head when you said that honesty
Yeah.
with yourself. And I think if I was to ever go redo my swimming career, I was just about to say sporting career when I'm doing CrossFit now. But
Maybe.
swimming career, I think I needed a little bit more of that. I think I definitely needed a little bit more of that because I got success relatively early on in my career. There's a mentality, it comes with a mentality of, hey, I can just ride that wave. And actually, when it got a little bit tougher and you got a little bit older, um, didn't necessarily be honest with myself. And I really remember this one race, like my season wasn't going that great. Everything was just a bit meh. And you still got my parents getting frustrated at me, you got the coaches getting frustrated at me, and then if you're doing a team stuff, you kind of get a lot of team frustration. So you're just like, this isn't great. But it was that thing of I was just down on my numbers all the time, every single race. But rather than being honest with myself, I just carried on doing the same things, eating the same way, sleeping the same way, training the same way, rather than actually thinking, if I'm honest with myself, could I have slept better? Could I have drank more water better? Could I have, looked at my diet better? And, all of these different factors and variables that aren't that huge to just edit and change, but would have actually made a bigger difference to my numbers where I wouldn't have then got so much grief from other people. And if I did read it in my swimming career, I think that'd be the one big takeaway.
I think that's excellent. And you were kind of jogging my memory when I was younger. And even if we apply it now to business, to entrepreneurship, but having a mentor to provide that sense of accountability. We're
Yeah.
human. I mean, I think it's inevitable that you want to you want to think like it was not my fault, like it was not me. But if somebody is helping you be honest with yourself and like, no, Courtney, let's reflect on this one, and holding you accountable alongside your own self, of holding your own self, of course, accountable, I think that whole teamwork, if you will, like with the mentor and then being honest with yourself, I think could help just any human being, no matter if they are in entrepreneurship, business, or if you are younger and you're still, starting in your sport career. But just having accountability, I think, with from somebody else, just saying, hey, like, it's just like what we were talking about even before we got on, to join a running group I was talking about. It's that sense of accountability. It's a team that, hey, Courtney, where were you?
Yeah.
So I think that's just natural, though. I think it's just natural being a human being is, you're like, was it really my fault? Yes, it was, Courtney. Look in the mirror. Yes, it was.
Exactly. Like I'm doing qualifiers at the moment. Then we're going to do our biggest competition of the year in the next 3 weeks. So I've got like pre-nerves anxiety going on of, and honestly, God, the question that keeps running around my head at the moment is just like, have I done enough? Because now I'm in the comp window, where what I do for the next 2-3 weeks isn't going to really matter. It's not really going to really change my outcome. What is going to change is, am I eating well? Am I sleeping well? Am I keeping stress down? All those factors. I've just got to keep them in check. But I'm praying that a whole 12 months of training has been enough, and I've been focused enough throughout all of that time and consistent enough, and I'm like talking to my coach about it, because like you said, it's just like, have we done it right? And I'm thankfully my coach is just like, yeah, you've had everything so drilled in for like easily last 6 months. I was like, okay, that's a good allotted amount of time.
I give you so much credit, first off, for doing CrossFit. That is incredible, Charlie. I mean, my gosh, I know we were speaking about this before, but your ranking, your dedication to CrossFit in general is truly remarkable. So hands down, give you total credit for that. First off, talk about dedication. But
Swimmer's mentality.
well, and intensity, Charlie. Some people think I'm crazy because it really is that. I think once you reach those elite levels, I mean, same with you, of course, in swimming, it's that if I'm going to do something, I am going to go 150%,
Yep.
or I just don't go at all.
Yeah.
And that's just my mentality. I'm not saying it works for everybody or that you should do it, but just personally speaking, that's just how I'm wired. But when you talk about preparation for your meet and your competition, I always think about when you're trying to hold yourself accountable, like you said, whether it's nutrition, am I sleeping well, or sleeping enough, should I say, that when I fast forward, even when I was starting this business, if I fast forward 5 years into the future and I did not go for something, or like you said, in this, situation, I did not eat healthy to prepare myself, would I regret it? And so it's this like internal voice almost in my head all the time of holding me accountable. Like I really do. I got into my childhood recently, not to go off track, but I started eating Lucky Charms for breakfast. Yeah, not good. Okay, let me just tell you that. I have not seen good results from that when I run. My sugar, like, of course, spikes up and crashes. But it's to that very point of, Courtney, is this going to help you long term achieve all of your goals? Like your whole day, are you being productive? No, you're not. You have to reassess that. So I do. Number one, I commend you on that. But number two, that's something I always do is fast forward 5 years, look back, and would you regret like what you're doing if it is trying to, go for a competition, and have you done everything properly? For me, with plenty of positivity, am I blocking off time and using it wisely, using time wisely? So
And as we draw to the end of the podcast, I want just to make sure that people take that as an action. I'm going to use the example of, if you've got that craving for a chocolate bar, and you really shouldn't have it because maybe you've had a whole bunch of other Lucky Charms and other things that day. just thinking rather than today or the present, maybe like, hey, how does this help me in 1 month's time? How does this help me in a year's time? Now, you're big into the book clubs, so I thought to finish today's podcast that we both just recommend a book each that we think the listener would really help them carry on today's conversation that we've had. So do you want to go first?
Oh, a book. Let me think here. So I must say, as of recently, I have read a lot of very uplifting, positive self-improvement books, but I don't know if I can give you necessarily one, but I have a couple. So I have a combo of three, and I say this for a reason because each has a certain, I think, lessons to learn from. But Think Your Way to the Top by Des,
Yep.
because it's an ongoing journey for basically a full year, 52-week like journal essentially.
Yep.
But it holds you accountable for different topics that he speaks about. So the second one, I really enjoyed The Life is Too Short Guy by Scott White, because it talks all about positivity and in many aspects of your life. So not just within career and sport, but just how you carry yourself even in your personal life too.
Yeah.
And then my third one, I really like this one because it has life, sport, and career all mixed into one, pushes you to the ultimate extreme in sport, pushes you to the ultimate extreme in business, but Built to Finish by Stephen Pivnik.
Yeah.
So all three of those, I don't mean to overwhelm your audience, but those really do stand out in my mind because they're positive. They're very authentic in how they disclose whether personal stories, business stories, and then ultimately just really allows you to end on a positive note. So I'm all about positivity.
I think they are fantastic recommendations. After this, I'm going to be putting them onto my Goodreads. I've already read two of them, so I'm just going to put that third one in there. And then my book recommendation, and it just wants to tie in what we spoke about today, and mine's 4,000 weeks, because we've talked about time management, we've talked about calendar management, and there's always this one factor when every single person on this planet has the same amount of time, same amount of time in the day, same amount of time in the week. And, some people are more successful with that allotted time than others. So how can we understand our allotted finite amount of time and get the most out of it? So for just a little bit of context on the title, 4,000 weeks is the average amount of weeks that a person will get if you live to the age of 80. And so if you think about it, so I'm 30, so I'm 40% of the way there, and suddenly when you think, gee, I'm gonna get close to that 50%, you start to think about time a little bit differently, a little bit as this valued resource. So when you're doing something on a day, like when little shiny opportunity or shiny objects come this way, it's like, actually, do I need to say yes or no to this? Is this going to be helping me with my time management? And it loops all that together. So fantastic book. It does give you a bit of an existential crisis, so I will give it a warning label.
I love that. And I must say too, you made me think about, God willing, if I am able at the age of 80 to be sitting in a rocking chair, will I have looked back at my life and basically the things that I wanted to go for that I went for, living with no regret? And I think when we talk about time, using your time wisely, but not only that, like, go for things. If you want to start that business, go for it. If you want to get into a certain sport, go for it. Because at the end of my life, I really want to look back and say that I did not have those big regrets like, oh, what if I would have started Plenty of Positivity? There's no guarantee of success, but hey, you tried it. You're learning through it right now as we speak. So I just wanted to leave that too for your audience as well with regards to time.
What a place to finish today's podcast and last minute note. I think that's You're incredible. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. I've loved it. This is definitely one of our longest podcasts because there was just so much to get in there. You know, this has been nonstop, and I hope everybody really enjoys the longer form podcast of today.
Charlie, you were an absolute joy, and it was truly an honor to be on this podcast. And I wish you all the best moving forward, too.